Alright, homies, we're here at Little Tokyo. Look at this nice background. The lighting's A1. I had another word for it, but I forgot already what I was gonna say. Aesthetic. Immaculate, there we go. I was gonna use immaculate. But anyways, we're gonna go over kick flips and heel flips. I got the idea because we went on live earlier and someone was kind of saying, you know, asking questions about kick flips and tray flips. But we're gonna stay with kick flips and heel flips because I feel like they're very similar, you know. It's just my theory is that some people have a tendency to lean one way, more like squared off to the board, and so therefore like heel flips seem a bit easier, and other people kind of stand on their board a bit more opened up in terms of the direction they're going. So opened up in terms of the direction they're going versus squared off. People who are squared off, at least I have found that they have an inclination to do heel flips a bit better when they start versus a kick flip. For example, I like skaters like Neen Williams, skaters like Jamie Foy are two that come to mind, and I see them as very squared up skaters, right? And they're really good at heel flips, front crooks, grinds that, you know, grinds and slides that you have to do on the front side, right? So having said that, I'm gonna spend like 10 minutes on the kick flip, and then we're gonna go over the heel flip and what my thoughts are. So first off, with the kick flip, you know, I feel a lot of people get really eager to learn a kick flip or a heel flip after the ollie, but there's so many tricks in between, right? And the reason why I mentioned that, it's because it's important to get that feel of the snap, right, without forcing the pop. Look at the board. So that motion where you ollie and it doesn't take so much effort to do so is super important when you're learning these tricks, right? The kick flip and the heel flip. Because if you're forcing that pop with the ollie, chances are that you're gonna be thinking of this trick as a two-step motion where you pop and then flick, right? But the truth is, it's supposed to all happen at the same time, whether it's the kick flip or the heel flip. So for the kick flip, what I want you to keep in mind when you're trying to first flick it is that you're over this left side, your front foot. Mine is the left side, right? So generally what most people do is they'll go to their back foot and then kind of flick the board away. And so the reason why that's very inefficient is because, for one, the board, you're not supposed to reach the board. The board is always supposed to stay under you. And so one way you can think about keeping it under you when you flick is by making sure you stay over your front foot from the time you go down to the time you land. All right, so from pop to end, you should always lean over that front foot. For me, it's the left side as a regular skater. But let's just really quickly, if you're going switch, it should be the right side, your front foot there, right? That was not good. But that's one thing. Keep your weight distributed over that lead foot. Now the second thing, obviously it's not gonna be as easy as just keeping the weight over there. You're gonna wanna make sure that as you're hopping, you make sure it feels as if you're just doing an ollie like this, right? And in order to do that, you want to make sure that this foot, as you're popping and flicking, is also coming up, right? Because I see a lot of people do this, where as soon as they pop, they bring their foot back here, so they'll go like, right? And the reason that's never going to work is because you're pretty much like halfway committed, right? What I will say, if you're thinking about only getting the board feel or the feel for that flick, and you want to land on one foot, prioritize landing on this front foot, right? So maybe it could look something like this, right? Or maybe it can look something like this, right? You can play around with those two things because at the end, because it still allows you to keep it under your body for the most part. So that's the second thing. Keep it under you and think about landing with your front foot if you are gonna only commit with one leg, right? So the reason why that's super important is because when you flick and you try to land on this back foot, it doesn't really imitate how you're supposed to commit and catch a kickflip. Because if you look at how I catch this kickflip, that's not a good one. But if you look at how I catch my kickflip and the weight settles in, it's always over that left side. I'm thinking, is the light good here, or should you?
That's good.
It's good. Okay, cool. So that's why we want to stay over that left side. Now, as far as foot positioning goes, generally, so let's say I want to ollie high, right? I'm gonna put my foot right here, right in this where it's pushing down, just in the center. So when I do a kickflip, I've seen a lot of tips that kind of explain different foot positionings, but what I would say is don't make it so complicated, right? You know how to pop an ollie, assuming you know how to. You felt that snap, you practiced that onto things, so just kind of rely on that intuition, right, with that pop. Now, what I see a lot of people doing is putting their foot so close to the heel side where it's hard for them to balance the board as they're kind of trying to flick, right? And right off the bat, if you're unstable before you pop, it's not gonna be a good time learning these tricks. So you wanna make sure you're stable. And one way you can do that is aim to find the stability through the lead foot, that front foot like we were talking about. And the way I personally do that, and have found many others to do, is placing their foot a bit more inside the board, closer to the center line, where it basically is gonna balance you out, right? Another thing, this has to do with your posture. I see a lot of people, as soon as they go down, they lean too far forward or lean back so that they can catch themselves. I want you to just think about bringing your hips back so that your weight or maybe even your chest just sits right over that center line, right? So that when you go down, you're not leaning too far towards your heel side or leaning too far towards your toe side, right? Bring the hips back and just let it hang over. So, having said that, you want to think about being stable. You want to think about using your intuition on how you've been snapping your ollies, and you also want to think about committing with that front foot. I know I mentioned something else in the beginning. Wow, what did I mention? Oh my god, I'm blanking. I'm sorry, guys. What was the first thing I mentioned? Okay, I'm gonna get back to it. But okay, what I was saying is that foot positioning, instead of having it over here, I know it seems easier to flick from here, and I'm sure a lot of people do it, but personally it's never worked for me. So I'm not gonna teach that way, but it has worked for others, and maybe you want to look at the way other people do that kickflip. What I would say next is you want to play around with the direction your foot is, right? When I first started, my foot was pretty much pointing diagonally towards the toe side being this right here. So I started doing my kickflips like this, right? Now I've realized that that's not such an important factor, but it is important when you're first learning it because you want to stay consistent. But now you can find me doing them more squared off like this, where my foot is pointing directly towards the toe side as opposed to diagonally, and it works almost just as well. Same thing when I'm doing like backside flips. Sometimes I'll go here, sometimes I'll go there. It really depends what trick I'm doing. Like if I'm doing a kickflip back tail, I'll have it a bit more diagonal, right? doing a backside flip, I'll place it straight up. Oh. And you land it. I'll put them more straight towards the toe side. Oh my god, am I lying? I need to land it. My ego is telling me I need to land it.
Oh no.
And the live, I landed a good one, right?
Yeah.
Oh my god. Okay, what's happening? That's good enough. So you'll see I have it a bit more closer. I mean, a bit more pointed towards the toe side. Regardless, play around with that, but what I would say is try to stay with one foot positioning for a while. You know, if you find yourself eager to change it all the time, just stick to 100 tries in that same position, right? And then slowly change it. But at the end of the day, no matter how many good tips you get, you need to go out for yourself and experience the trial and error for yourselves, right? So what's the time?
11 minutes.
Okay, cool. So we're gonna go to heel flips. Now, everything that I mentioned for the kick flip is very similar to what I'm talking about, what I talked about with the kick flip, right? You wanna make sure that you're on that center line, your weight is on that center line, you're pushing down in the center. And with this one, because your foot is closer to the toe side, you can place this foot a bit more closer to the heel side. So usually for a kick flip, it's over here. For me, for a heel flip, I move it slightly closer to the heel side, slightly, very little, but it's there. And so you got to play with that and understand that there has to be some sort of counterbalance, right? Not too exaggerated where you're like this, right? But definitely a way where as you hinge your hips and let your weight sit over your center line, you're very leveled instead of going too heavy on the toes or too heavy on the heels, right? So another thing that really helps me with heel flips is having my toes pretty much curl over the toe side right there. So I've found that if I keep them like 2 inches below the bottom bolts, the top bottom bolts, and I'm grabbing on that toe side, they work generally for me. But this can also change depending on what wheelbase you have. You know, I'm skating a short wheelbase, so maybe if you're skating a longer wheelbase, or if you're shorter, or just have different waist ratios, maybe you'll be a little closer to the center, right? And that's okay. Another thing I would say, instead of just flicking out, trying to flick out all the way over here, I can imagine that when you're first learning heel flips, it's really hard for your body to move in this way, right? Where it's expanding. And so just do that little by little. Get used to flicking. Have this be the point where you're trying to flick out. And then as you improve flicking in that direction, just gradually increase that point, right? Until it hits from this pretty much from the center of the pocket and the tip of the nose, right? So I'm always aiming to flick over here, right? So you gradually just need to get comfortable with expanding your legs like that. So we covered center, we covered counterbalance, center, feeling that toe, and it's super important to feel that because it really gives you that sensory, I guess, awareness that you need to really dial in the kick flips, right? Because if you're just kind of throwing your heel out, you're not really sure how, what you're doing wrong or right. So it really helps me kind of grasp that sensory information. For the heel flips, there's one more thing. I'd say the last thing I want to say is with kick flips and heel flips, I try to think of them now as like the same trick. It's just one feels more comfortable than the other based off of, like I said, if you generally have yourself opened up like this, you know, I could be completely wrong, but I've seen that most people kickflip if they're opened up. I feel comfortable with that one. But for someone who's closed off, or not closed off, but just very squared up to their board, that heel flips come way more naturally. So regardless of which one feels more natural or not, they're pretty much a very similar trick. The biggest thing for me is that the feeling, how do you say that board feel right before you pop, like this and this, right? So one of them makes you feel a little less stable, whereas the other feels more stable. I think I just repeated the same thing like 3 times. But it's okay. I mean, regardless of the fact, gradually change your steps, but stay consistent with one method and gradually tweak it, if you will. But what's the minute?
16 minutes.
All right. I think we're just gonna finish it off there. Maybe I should do 10 kickflips and 10 heel flips.
All right.
Yeah,
go.
see, and you'll see which one I have most naturally. Oh, I haven't used that one. 7, 8. Oh, actually, something actually super important. As you're giving them the reps they need, or you need to learn, remember to take a breather, because you can easily get fatigued and just be doing this the whole time. Right? Like not even giving yourself time to catch a breather. So before I do these heel flips, I'm gonna give them a fair chance and catch the breather, because I was tired after that. Because otherwise it wouldn't be a fair chance. I should have probably done heel flips first. But yeah, give yourself the breather so that you know that you're settled in and you're doing the same thing, and you can slightly tweak and reduce the factors you need to consider to move around. That makes sense?
Yeah.
Right, cool. So I'm gonna do heel flips. 5. I really try to hold on to that one.
And the breather.
Huh?
Stay in the straight line.
That was 6. That's one. Alright. Last thing that I was reminded as I was doing these, you want to make sure that you're thinking about landing on your forefoot, right? So just like you would jump and land first on your forefoot, or at least I would hope so, you want to think about prioritizing that with both kick flips and heel flips, right? Forefoot. I know some of those I landed like this. That's not what you want to aim for. All right, having said that,
Well, what helps with that, isn't it your hips?
yeah, exactly. Use your hips, engage your hips, start low and low. I think I mentioned it already, or at least I should have. When you're stabilizing yourself, your hips need to go back so that your weight centers over the board. That way, when you're going down, you're over your forefoot and you're already engaged the whole way from the pop to the land. And what I mean by engaged the whole way is pretty much like having this flexed in this position, right? You extend, but you really only extend to pop, right? But as far as engaging, this is always kind of flexed in this way, whereas this one just kind of recoils like so that you can engage it as well, right? You see this kind of come back up. Engage it the whole way through, and that's what's gonna allow you to land on the forefoot. But yeah, we're gonna leave it at that. I'm like cornering you through.
That's it. Literally, is what I'm thinking in my head. I'm like, bro.
Okay, well you can come closer, and I'll back up. But anyways, shout out Inner City SkateShop. Shout out SPLAY shoes. I have a code in the description, 10% off. Profe Carlos, you'll see it there. And yeah, look out for more videos. Wait, let me do one more.
Oh.
All right, laters.